For a whole decade, the celebrated photographer Daniel Hayes believed he was capturing life. He thought his camera lens was a window into those perfect, fleeting moments, a way to preserve memories one click at a time. His work was praised everywhere. His eye for detail was simply unmatched. But one day, when he finally took a moment to look back at his own massive archive, he uncovered something that shattered his entire reality. A single, terrifying truth had been hiding in plain sight all along. A stranger, a man he'd never met, never even noticed, had been standing in the background of every single photo he had ever taken for an entire decade. And the most chilling part, Daniel had never ever seen him before. The discovery began on what should have been a totally unremarkable Tuesday night. Daniel, running on coffee and the stress of a looming deadline for a major gallery exhibition, was sifting through thousands of his old digital files. He was searching for that one special shot, the kind of magic that could tie his whole collection together. And that's when he saw it. Or rather, that's when he saw him. It was a street photo from a trip to Prague back in 2015, a bustling market scene full of life and color. But there, in the far right corner, almost lost in the motion blur of the crowd, stood a tall man. He was out of focus, just a figure on the edge you'd normally dismiss without a second thought. But something about his stillness was unnerving. Daniel leaned closer to his monitor, his fingers automatically moving to the trackpad. He zoomed in. The man's face was blurry, but his posture was rigid, stiff. He wasn't part of the scene. He was observing it. Observing Daniel. The man had no expression. He was just watching. Daniel felt a faint prickle on his neck but quickly brushed it aside. A coincidence. It had to be. A city of millions, 1,000 faces in a day. What were the odds of a stranger looking right at your camera? Pretty high, probably. He just shrugged, moving on to the next folder. Another city, another year. He opened a photo from a wedding he shot in rural Scotland in 2017. A joyous occasion. The couple caught mid-laugh, and there he was again, peeking from behind an old oak tree, hundreds of feet away from the happy couple. Same tall frame, same dark coat. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His heart started a low, heavy drumbeat against his ribs. This couldn't be happening. He started clicking faster now, a frantic energy taking over. A concert in Tokyo, 2018. The man was a silhouette against the bright stage lights. A family portrait in New York, 2020. His reflection was perfectly captured in the glass of a storefront window right behind the smiling family. A wildlife shot from the Amazon rainforest, 2022. A place so remote Daniel hadn't seen another human for days. Yet there he was, a barely visible figure standing on a distant riverbank, half hidden by the dense jungle leaves. The man was there, every single time. A cold, creeping dread began to snake its way up Daniel's spine. This was no longer a coincidence. This was a pattern, a terrifying, impossible pattern that stretched across continents, across years, across the most intimate and public moments of his career. Different cities, different countries, different events, from chaotic festivals to quiet, serene landscapes, but always the same face, the same silent observer. Sometimes he was way in the background, a ghost in the machine. Other times he was closer, cleverly hidden behind a lamppost, a passing car, or even another person. In one photo, only his hand was visible, resting on a railing. In another, just his eyes, peering from the darkness of an alleyway. Each new discovery was a fresh wave of nausea. Daniel felt physically sick, his stomach churning with a horrible mix of fear and disbelief. His entire life's work, his sanctuary, had been invaded, violated. He immediately started running diagnostics, his mind racing through logical explanations. He checked the metadata of each photo, the timestamps, the GPS coordinates, the camera settings. Everything was normal. He pulled up the original raw files, the digital negatives untouched by any editing software. The man was embedded in the original data. This wasn't a digital ghost, a software glitch, or some elaborate prank. This was real. His hands trembled as the horrifying realization finally set in. Someone had been following him. Not just for a day or a week, for 10 years. A silent, persistent shadow that he had unknowingly documented himself. Who was this man, and what did he want? Sleep became a luxury Daniel could no longer afford. His spacious, minimalist apartment, once a place of calm and creativity, transformed into the war room of a paranoid obsession. The clean white walls disappeared under a chaotic collage of his own work. He printed hundreds of the photos, pinning them up in chronological order. Red string crisscrossed the room, connecting the stranger from one image to the next, a desperate attempt to find a logic that just wasn't there. He spent his days and nights hunched over his desk, magnifying glass in hand, zooming into every pixel, every shadow, every reflection. He was hunting the hunter. The stranger became the sole focus of his existence. He analyzed the man's clothing, a simple, dark overcoat that seemed oddly out of place in summer photos but perfectly anonymous in winter ones. He tried to read the man's expression, but it remained a void, a cold, detached blankness that offered no clues at all. Then, in the early hours of the fourth straight sleepless night, Daniel noticed something else, something so profoundly strange it made the hair on his arms stand up. The man wasn't aging. Daniel pulled down a photo from 2015 and held it next to one he'd taken just last month on his own street. 10 years separated the two images. Daniel himself had more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes. The world in the photos had changed, but the stranger hadn't. Not in the slightest. He looked exactly the same. Same face, completely untouched by time. Same dark coat, showing no signs of wear. Same empty, cold eyes. It was impossible. A man who doesn't age, a man who can appear anywhere in the world at any time. Daniel's frantic search for a rational answer had led him to a deeply irrational conclusion. He was being haunted. He stumbled back from the wall, his own photos now looking like portals into a nightmare. He looked at the unchanging face of the stranger and whispered into the silence of his apartment, the question consuming his every thought: "What are you?" One night, as Daniel sat amidst the chaos of his investigation, staring blankly at the wall of faces, his phone chimed a notification. A new photo had been automatically synced from his camera to his cloud storage, but that was impossible. He hadn't touched his camera in days. He hadn't even left the apartment. His heart hammered against his ribs. Like a frantic bird trapped in a cage, with a shaking hand, he unlocked his phone and opened the gallery. His blood ran cold. His breath caught in his throat with a strangled gasp. It was a photo of him right now, asleep in his own bed, his face etched with exhaustion. The photo was taken from the foot of the bed, from inside his locked apartment, and standing next to him, shrouded in the dim light from the street lamp outside his window, was the stranger. He wasn't in the background anymore. He wasn't a blur in the distance. He was there, closer than ever before, in perfect focus, and he was staring directly into the camera lens. His expression finally changed. It was a look of quiet triumph. Daniel screamed. He scrambled out of his chair, grabbing the heaviest object he could find, a thick photography in his hand. He frantically dialed the police, his voice a broken, terrified whisper. He explained the situation as best he could, babbling about the photos, the stranger, the image on his phone. The dispatcher, though probably skeptical, promised to send a unit right away. When the police arrived, they found Daniel in a state of near-total collapse, his apartment a shrine to his terror. They searched the entire place thoroughly, every room, every closet, every possible point of entry. But the stranger was gone. There were no signs of a break-in. The locks were secure, the windows untouched. No fingerprints that didn't belong to Daniel. It was as if the man had simply materialized in the room and vanished just as quickly. The officers exchanged sympathetic but doubtful glances. To them, this was just the sad scene of a man having a mental breakdown. Then, one of the officers noticed it, a small, folded piece of paper left neatly on Daniel's pillow. The pillow where his head had been in that horrifying photograph. It wasn't there before. Daniel knew it wasn't. Trembling, he reached for it. It was a single note. Written in crisp, neat, elegant handwriting were 5 simple words that would forever echo in his mind. "You finally saw me." Daniel Hayes hasn't taken a single photograph since that night. He sold his cameras, deleted his archive, and moved to a small town where nobody knows his name. He tries to live a quiet life, to forget the decade of his life that was stolen by a silent observer. But the fear never truly leaves him, because sometimes, when he catches his own reflection in a darkened window or walks past a polished storefront, he swears he can still see him, a tall man in a dark coat, standing just behind him, waiting and watching.